This is the game that you're shutting down? Meta has their priorities way wrong. They really don't give a crap. So this situation is a whole lot scummier than I originally thought. Last video, we talked about Meta out of nowhere completely shutting down one of the most popular VR games out there. And in that video, I honestly was pretty mad, something that doesn't happen very often. I'm not an angry person. And to be real, I'm not even in the Echo community. I don't have thousands of hours in Echo VR. I like it, I care about the game, I think it should be preserved, but what's really hitting me right now and is making me feel more than anything else is seeing the Echo community just so gutted after having their game ripped from them. And there's nothing they can do about it. It really feels like the company that we're all attached to, whether you like it or not. You know, one of the only real drivers in the VR industry is just abandoning a huge part of its core community. And that hurts, whether you care about Echo or not. And I really think Meta is making a big mistake. So I wanted answers. Why is this happening? Why kill a game with tens of thousands of active users? And is this really how Meta is going to operate in the future? And well, I think I have just about all of the answers, and you're probably not gonna like them. But I will say that there's a very real chance we can save Echo VR and send Meta a message. But let's start from the top. Player 01. I think it's really important to acknowledge a massive internal change that happened at Meta recently. John Carmack has been the CTO, or at least consulting CTO, of Oculus for the past 10 years. He's been instrumental in everything that Oculus has done since its inception. And well, as you know, just 2 months ago, he left that position and Andrew Bosworth basically took over as CTO of all of Meta mid last year. And well, Carmack no longer having a say in the VR side of things has pretty obviously completely changed the philosophy of how Meta handles VR. And I think it's pretty easy to see exactly why. Swapping chief technology officers of a future technology company, even if Carmack wasn't full-time, is almost like a company brain transplant. On one hand, Carmack comes from a pretty legendary background of being a gamer and game designer. His takes are not always perfect, but his core beliefs generally align far closer with pro-consumer and pro-gamer, meaning good for us. He is the reason why we have gotten so many extra features on the Quest 2, like 120 Hz for example. And Bosworth, on the other hand, is cut from totally different cloth. He's been at Facebook since 2006, and he made his claim to fame within the company making Facebook money as the vice president of ads. That's right, essentially Boz is the father of mobile Facebook ads. And now this is the guy in charge of VR. We had a gaming legend, and now we have the legend of advertisements in charge of VR. And as hilarious and sick as that is, it's not a joke. This is the state of Meta and their VR department right now. And I want you to think of that as we get into this AMA he just hosted on Instagram, where he explains exactly why Echo VR is getting shut down.
So what happened here? It just dwindled. The user base is small. It's loyal as all get out, but it's small. It's measured in, the low 10,000s. Those resources could be put to other uses that I think will be useful to the now tens of millions of people who are in VR, and at some point you have to make those choices.
So cat's out of the bag. It's not a money thing. It turns out that Meta and Ready at Dawn have decided that it isn't worth the effort and development resources it would take to keep Echo VR alive. Or as Boz says, it's not worth the human capital, which is a very non-human way to refer to talent.
I'm sad because these things are meant something to people. They had real value and purpose, and they had intention, and they brought people together, and that's what we're trying to do as a macro thing. But I do need to think about return on investment. And I'm not talking about money back to Meta. I'm not talking about trying to make money. I'm talking about the return on the human capital, the people that could be doing something that's going to affect millions of people, but instead they're trying to keep something alive that affects 10,000s of people. I love how deeply it affected those people, but I just got to make those calls. It's part of my job.
Ooh, Boz, you can talk about how you want to make things that affect millions of people in VR, but frankly, Meta has never made anything even close to that scale that people want to use in VR. Anything and everything even close to successful that Meta has ever done done in VR has just been an acquisition. And anytime you've acquired something, that core product actually gets worse. And this is the best example of that. You say Echo has diminished in users, but beyond cosmetic paid DLC, the game hasn't really been updated at all since it came to the Quest 3 years ago. And half the game, in my opinion, the better half of the game, Echo Combat, just never came to the Quest at all. It's stuck on PC for no reason. And at this point, it's honestly impressive that Echo still has a community as large as it does at all. But now you say you want to make applications that affect millions of people? Well, you know, I think a pretty good way to get there is to start with the formula that has already deeply affected the tens of thousands first. Then you can iterate on that formula, make that community feel good, bring things that are additive, bring updates. Then eventually you build up to get to millions through organic growth. That's how you get people to actually want to use VR. But you wouldn't know anything about this because you've never done that before, and don't even try to wave Horizon around. The only reason you've gotten so many members for Horizon is because you've strong-armed every single Quest user to sign up for the service. You force them. That's not how organic, strong communities are built. And in Echo's case, you're just throwing the baby out with the bathwater. So, there's no doubt going to be people that think I may be being ridiculous for making videos on this, or that I'm blowing things out of proportion, and you know what? For some people, I'm sure that's true. Some people really don't care, and they'll just bend over and take it from any corporation that'll give it to them. But really, why do I even care? It's just a game that I don't even play all the time. But here are the two big things that really bother me. One is that I worry that VR gaming in the future is just going to slip down this gross, borderline illegal bottom barrel of the gaming industry, games as a service model for everything. And that Echo VR is just the beginning and Meta is leading the way. This games model is literally the worst in all of gaming, and I don't want it to super infect VR. But the second thing is that it really doesn't have to be this way. We are just so close to not having to deal with these issues. In fact, this is so true that Mr. Adman and John Carmack both agreed that Echo VR would be alive if it was Carmack's decision.
John would not have shut down Echo VR.
And that's what bothers me. We're this close and there are so many things Meta could do. Here's from John Carmack, quote, "Even though there are only 10,000 active users, destroying that user value should be avoided if possible. Your company suffers more harm when you take away something dear to a user than you gain in benefit by providing something equally valuable to them or others." End quote. He then goes off to give multiple solutions that they could have done, like just dropping to absolute minimum support, putting a single developer on the project, or spinning off the project entirely, letting a developer take it outside of Meta, something that other companies do pretty often, or open sourcing it, something that they certainly will not do. But instead, the worst case scenario is going to happen. Echo is going to become lost media, completely inaccessible beyond August 1st, and it didn't have to be this way. Meta is just too lazy and they don't care enough to do the absolute bare minimum for one of its most passionate communities. In case you're wondering why I'm so riled up and why you should care about this, is because this is just the first domino. This is gonna keep happening and it's gonna get worse and worse and worse. That's why I'm trying to stand up now. And if you don't do it in 2 or 3 years, you're gonna wish you did, because you give them an inch and they'll take a mile. Okay, tangent over. As promised, there is actually a really good chance at saving Echo VR. This sort of goes against the end user license agreement, but honestly, I read through the EULA, and depending on where you live, this document is borderline gray area illegal anyways. It's one of those BS you don't own the game, we just give you a license to use it things, which would never hold up. And by the way, this even goes for Lone Echo, the single player part of the game. If you bought that game, well, according to this EULA, you don't even own a copy of it. But anyways, saving Echo. Meta has made their decision that they're not going to put any extra effort into preserving Echo. So we're gonna have to do it ourselves. Luckily, we have a savior. Someone out there has created a functional mod loader for Echo VR called the Vega Mod Loader. This has been used specifically in the past for professional Echo tournaments, mainly to change the server to play in a LAN environment, and of course also make some other adjustments with the Vega patch. But this mod loader has been completely closed source, with a good reason, mostly to make sure that cheating within Echo was not a thing through the mod loader. And well, the creator of the Vega Mod Loader, Aldin101, is going to make this entirely entirely open source as soon as the servers go down, allowing anyone to mod Echo VR, Lone Echo, and Lone Echo 2 to do literally whatever you want with it. Add content, maps, change the rules, eventually maybe change the servers. We don't need peer-to-peer, we don't need open sourcing. All we need is either for Meta to provide the decrypted server information so that the community can create emulated servers, or the community is going to eventually reverse engineer the servers. Whether that takes months or years to do, which it could take years, they're going to do it. So if there is one thing that Meta could do, and this is the targeted message that we need to request from Meta, do the bare minimum to keep this community alive, give the packet to the community to give them the ability to emulate servers. That is all we need. They've got the mod loader, give them the ability to emulate the servers. And Echo can live on forever just like it should, in the same energy as Quake or Halo custom servers or the original Dota mods. We can do it. This is a totally possible thing. All Meta has to do is the bare minimum. Oh man. So this was a very emotional string of videos. There's anger and sadness and just this whole mix of feelings. But we've finally reached the conclusion of this two-parter. And I gotta say, I am so excited to go work on some hardware videos now that aren't so loaded. But I also hope that you guys got to see a little bit behind what's going on at Meta right now. It sucks. I mean, they're just a company making VR stuff and they're doing a lot for the industry, but they're also fumbling over and over again and making kind of evil decisions. And I only make these videos because Meta is always so close to doing the right thing, to doing the thing that people want, but they keep making these terrible decisions, and it's like you love something so much that you're more critical about it because you care. And that's just where I'm at right now, and I hope y'all understand. I'm not trying to be melodramatic, but when I see folks in the VR community literally get trampled on, man, it really riles me up and it feels terrible. But at least know, even if I'm a little melodramatic, I always got your back. But until next time, I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you thought below. Much love, Real out.
Two orders of magnitude less space to play with, thermal space to play with.